I want to maintain my backyard. I want to maintain the standard of living that's in Trinwood subdivision.
Williams, on the other hand, plans to appear in court to fight for her chickens and her garden.
I remember years ago going to this guy's house. This house was in Pennsylvania. And this guy lived on 5 acres. 5 acres. Now I'm thinking, being a small-time gardener, do you know how much food you can grow on 5 acres? You can grow enough food to feed a whole town. And probably more. This guy lived on 5 acres. He had nothing but pure grass. One gigantic lawn. Very well manicured, all for getting up that curbside appeal. But just grass. 5 acres of land. He could have fed his family, he could have fed his neighbors with the amount of food that he could have grown on 5 freaking acres. So I'm sitting there in this big property, and I remember telling this guy, why don't you put some fruit trees? You know what he said? Sounds like work. That's work. And yes, he had a voice just like that. But this guy would pay thousands of dollars every month to have some company come in and do all of his landscaping. This is pure insanity. If you look at what is grown in the United States, lawns are the most taken care of. They are the most watered crop in America. We have more grass growing out of these lawns than anything else. We got more lawns than wheat fields. Like we got more lawns being grown than wheat. We got more grass being grown than wheat. And wheat is what sustains the world. Wheat, bread, that's what feeds the world. And we're growing freaking grass. Grass, lawns, turf grass, whatever the hell you want to call these damn abominations, these things take in more water than any other crop in the United States. They are the most watered plant in America. And we're talking about, childhood starvation, food shortages. But what are we wasting our soil on? Turf grass. And God made us from the earth. He made all this food from the earth. He took clay. He breathed the breath of life into it. He said, here you go. Here's life. Here's this Garden of Eden. Here's this whole earth that you can cultivate. And what do? Just mow my grass. When I mow my lawn. So I did a little bit of research to look into where this insanity came from, where this mental illness came from, because it is a mental illness. I have seen neighbors fight with each other over lawns. I've seen people attack their neighbors with lawsuits and with HOA complaints because they don't have a lawn, or their grass is too tall, or the grass is too short, or the magnolia tree in front of the house is too short. Doesn't conform to the standardization and the integrity of the neighborhood. I've seen neighbors get mad, because the person in the backyard has a garden. That's not good. We can't have a garden. That's against HOA rules. Can't have vegetables growing on the front yard. Can't have vegetables growing in the freaking backyard. It's mental illness. This is literally mental illness. People spending thousands of dollars every year on grass. And it's insanity. Like, you look at the chicken and egg industry in this country. Every single year, the United States butchers 200 million roosters because the rooster is not profitable, because the rooster only gives you meat. The chickens give you meat and the eggs. And then you look at the egg industry in this country and how we throw away countless eggs because the shape of the egg is not conforming to the standard egg appearance that we see in the grocery store. American buyers, consumers aren't going to like that. So we throw away all these eggs. And we're sitting here talking about childhood starvation and starvation in Africa and poverty and all the people in America living below the poverty line. And here we are throwing away eggs because some people in the store, oh, the egg looks a little different. I don't like that. Oh, the yolk is a little bit orange. Why isn't my yolk yellow? It has to be yellow. And we get so obsessed with utility. Everything has to have a use. If it doesn't have a use, then I don't like it. So we kill the rooster. We throw away an egg because it looks a little bit different. We throw away fruit because these fruit look a little bit deformed. And that is a reflection on how we treat each other. Why is it that most women in the Western world abort their children if the children have Down syndrome? We treat fruit the way we treat people. Because the way we treat food is a reflection on how we treat each other. This is why gardening, community gardens, are so beautiful and so powerful, because they help people realize what's truly important. They help people realize that God has actually given everything that we need. There's no shortage in anything. The only shortage there is our own capacity for compassion, our own capacity for understanding what is truly pertinent in this human experience. That's what's truly important. We have a huge shortage of that. But we will, slaughter hundreds of millions of birds because they're no use to us. We throw away all these eggs because supposedly, well, that's no use either. But then we have lawns. We have all this soil, and what do we do with it? We do nothing with it, except we put thousands of dollars into chemicals that destroy the soil, chemicals that will destroy the microbiome in the soil. We spend money on weed killer to kill dandelions, which are 100% edible, to destroy Malvaceae plants like common mala, which are 100% edible and very, very nutritious. It's really, really horrendous. Like, we could have so much edible food if we didn't obsess over our lawns. Like, we could have, so many different salad greens, edible weeds. And, if we were to take all of the lawns of America and put them all together, do you know how big of a land we would have? Do you know how big of a region that would make? It would literally be the size of Greece, a whole country. We would have all of Greece to cultivate. But we don't do that because, well, we have an obsession with lawns. So I did a little bit of research on where this obsession came from. Where the hell does it come from? And I found out. So it goes back to after the Second World War, and it goes back to this point specifically. In the 1930s, there was this obsession with lawns, but it wasn't there completely. A lot of people still gardened, but it was growing. After the Second World War, it became really, really solidified with the creation of America's first suburb. It was called Levittown in the state of New York. And it was created by a family called the Levitt family. Abraham Levitt and William Levitt, his son. This family had more influence on American suburban living than any other family in U.S. history. This was the family that would solidify America's mental illness, the mental illness called lawnism. It's really a mental virus. Levittown was built to provide housing for soldiers coming back from World War II. Soldiers fighting the fascists, fighting the evil Nazis. They were going to come back, and we needed to provide housing for the troops. Provide a house for a righteous soldier fighting those evil Nazis. Unless the soldier was black. If the soldier was black, didn't matter how many damn Nazis he shot, he couldn't live in Levittown. Because the rules stipulated that only people of Caucasian origins could live in Levittown. So in other words, you went out to World War II, you went out to Europe on the Western Front to fight those racist Nazis, only to come back and receive more racism. Turned out that the Levitt family was no different than those Nazis. And these are the people that established America's obsession with the lawn. And isn't it interesting that Levittown had an obsession with control? The size of the grass, the lawn. The lawn had to be manicured. The lawn had to be maintained. Only Caucasian people could live in this neighborhood, no colored folks. And it makes you wonder about our current day HOAs, how controlling they are, how obsessed they are with controlling people. Yesterday I watched a video on how slaves lived on the plantations in the South. Now I understand there were abuses that were done to slaves, and I'm not supporting that. I'm not supporting it. In fact, I'm not supporting slavery. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with supporting slavery, just making that clear. But the owners of the plantation, the slave masters, for the most part, they would allow their slaves to have gardens and to own chickens. The slave could have a garden, and the slave could have chickens. And to own a garden and to raise chickens and to raise your own eggs was a form and an expression of human empowerment and individuality. Individuality. Take that away from a man, and you have taken away his freedom. Because now he is a slave to the big lawn companies. He is a slave to the companies where you have to buy the chemical fertilizers and the weed killers and the lawn mower. You become a slave to industrialization. In other words, the lawn industry and lawn enforcement is controlling us more than the slave masters in the plantations. What does that tell us? I mean, really, what does that tell us? It's time to start a revolution. One garden at a time. It's time to start a revolution. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.